This is Western Europe's murder capital. Statistics show that if you live here, you're twice as likely to be murdered as in London, and 3 times more likely than in Dublin or in Paris. This city witnesses more murders each year than any other in Western Europe. This is Glasgow. It's a city of culture and a city of contrasts. Beautiful, yet brutal. Here, drug deaths, gangland feuds, and drink-fueled killings plague the headlines. 2 stories that hit the papers across the country occurred in the notorious northeast area of Glasgow. 2 crimes from the murder capital that shocked the entire nation. The first crime was the mass murder of an innocent family caught in the crossfire of a criminal turf war. The second, the killing of the son of Glasgow's godfather, a crime that ignited revenge attacks and contract killings. Both crimes led to the biggest trial Scotland had ever seen, and both became mired in controversy and scandal. Glasgow, the second city of the empire, the no-mean city. It's a place that's seen some tough times over the last few decades, but this is a tough city with an even tougher reputation. One part of Glasgow's history that has cemented that reputation is the infamous Ice Cream War. This raged in the huge estates in the east end of the city in the early 80s. Reg Mackay is Glasgow's foremost true crime expert and has investigated the conflicts that raged across this area of Glasgow.
East end of Glasgow in the early 80s was bandit territory. You had scheme after scheme, row after row of houses, modern tenements, jam-packed full of people. Unfortunately, they built these schemes without shops, without facilities. And suddenly, people began to realise that ice cream vans, selling a bit more than ice cream, selling a range of items, could go into these schemes, and the people had nowhere else to go. The trouble is that the territories within the east end of Glasgow in particular, some were very, very lucrative, and there was a lot of competition to get these territories, because the difference could mean several £100 income per week per van, which is a lot of money in the early 80s, a lot of money. The trouble also is that some organised gangsters saw this, and they were quite willing to threaten, assault, attack, torch vans, belonging to normal citizens, because it was your average citizen that was, running these vans in the main, and a lot of them got muscled out by gangsters, to be blunt. And it was all about money, nothing else.
The Ice Cream Wars hit the national headlines in 1984, when a completely innocent family was caught in the crossfire. In the early hours of a Monday morning, an unknown figure made their way to a top-floor flat in Bank End Street. Inside slept 3 generations of the Doyle family, the youngest member an 18-month-old baby. Douglas Skelton is a writer who has spent almost 20 years investigating what actually happened that night.
This is what's left of Bank End Street. The flat itself would have been somewhere over here. There were 9 members of the Doyle family in the flat that night. There weren't supposed to be that many, certainly, because they didn't all live there. But as bad luck would have it, it was a full house that night.
As the family slept, the front door and exterior cupboard, which contained paint, turpentine and car tyres, were set alight.
It created this thick, noxious black smoke, which pushed through the house, and because that front door was the only way in or out, the people inside couldn't escape. One of the brothers managed to grab the family dog and jump out of the window. the mother got out onto a window ledge.
Inside the flat, 25-year-old Christine Doyle perished while shielding her baby from the flames. Her 14-year-old brother Tony also died in the fire. 4 other members were rescued from the flat, including baby Mark and his 18-year-old uncle Andrew Doyle. But over the following 8 days, these 4 would each die, slowly and painfully, succumbing to burns and smoke inhalation. After surviving the fire and having to witness her family dying one by one, Lillian Doyle had to endure more heartache as she buried 6 of her immediate family in a single day. Her husband James, 4 of her children, and her 18-month-old grandson.
Deaths of the Doyle family turned into public outrage when it became clear that this had been an act of murder. A murder connected to the gangland violence known as the Ice Cream Wars.
These wars between rival ice cream van businesses had been raging in the East End of Glasgow for a number of years.
The ice cream wars were really just a battle for business. That's all it was. It was rivalry gone mad. If one driver or one person had a good run, somebody else could pinpoint that and want to take over the run.
Throughout the East End of Glasgow, a number of criminal gangs had been using threats and intimidation to muscle in on the profitable ice cream van runs. Andrew Doyle had been the driver of an ice cream van, and as the police made their inquiries, they discovered that Andrew had been the victim of this kind of intimidation.
Andrew Doyle was getting around, and that round was one of the most lucrative ice cream rounds in the East End. And there was pressure on him to scare him away from that round.
The first incident was a shotgun attack on Andrew's van. Then a couple of weeks later, whilst walking home, Andrew, or Fat Boy as he was known, was brutally assaulted.
Just by standing up for his own rights, just to do his job, to be allowed to get on with his life, Andrew Doyle became a target of violence.
Police believed that the fire was the result of another attack by criminals determined to gain control of Andrew's ice cream run.
Because this was at the time Scotland's biggest mass murder, the pressure from politicians, from the press, from the public was huge.
The police were not only determined to catch the person or persons who had lit the match, they also wanted to get the man who had ordered the killings. And it wasn't long before they had their main suspect.
By 1984, Tommy Campbell already had a reputation as a violent criminal. He had spent 10 years in jail for gangland crimes and would soon be in the frame for the biggest mass murder in modern Scottish history.
My connection with ice cream vans in East End of Glasgow was simply my wife at the time, Liz, had an ice cream van. She had an ice cream van in Cantine. My sister Agnes had an ice cream van in Gastanlock. And my sister Sadie had an ice cream van in Hag Hill in Glasgow.
Mr. Campbell was one of many people that had their name put into the system, and therefore he was treated like everyone else. But his name did come up almost immediately.